Hey friends, it's your boy with another wall of text. Welcome. So in this one, we're going to be learning about Svelte Headless UI, and by the end of the video you're going to learn what the Headless UI component library exactly is and how we can go from a normal regular HTML select element to something more custom we have control over. So you might be used to a component library like Material UI or any other, which is great if you enjoy it, but you find yourself fighting against these opinions all the time. So Headless UI component library, on the other hand, doesn't have opinions, so meaning it's completely unstyled, giving you complete control not only over styles but how you compose components by only exposing the logic to you like Lego pieces. So Svelte Headless UI, we can go to the URL, is inspired by Headless UI for Tailwind, and it's a complete port, unofficial one. So we can go here and you can see this is the Tailwind one from the Headless UI, but don't worry, you don't have to use Tailwind. It's completely optional and I don't use Tailwind in this project. And we can see here is the official page. So these are high quality unstyled Svelte components which are completely unstyled. They're fully accessible, extensively tested, fully typed with TypeScript and compatible with SvelteKit, which we're using, right? So let me just close out of this. So Svelte Headless UI exposes 9 components including dialog, disclosure, listbox, menu, popover, radio group, switch, tabs, and transition. This might be enough or not enough depending on the size of your project or team, because you might reach for something like Material UI, right? Because it has more opinions. But let me show you how awesome Svelte Headless UI is, and shout out to Ryan for working on this project. Here he is. So let me just close this and then we can go back. So a major benefit of using any component library is that it takes care of accessibility for you, and Svelte Headless UI is no exception, and it's also fully typed with TypeScript and compatible with SvelteKit as said in the documentation, right? And if you work with React, you might have heard about Reach UI, which is also awesome, and if you still work with React, I highly encourage you to look at that. So the next statement I'm going to make might sound completely ridiculous to you, but I'm completely serious. HTML is hard. You're laughing, you're like, what are you talking about? How is HTML hard? Are you insane? Okay, let me explain. So have you ever tried to style a HTML select element? What you quickly realize is that you have to make your own custom element. So that's not a problem, right? That's just simple HTML, CSS, and maybe some JavaScript. Wrong. HTML has the highest hidden complexity. Well, not the highest, but it's a high hidden complexity of accessibility. To implement a custom HTML select element that is also accessible, you have to follow the, I don't even know how to pronounce this, the YA ARIA standard guidelines. So the YA ARIA Accessible Rich Internet Application Suite defines a way to make web content and web applications more accessible to people with disabilities. So for example, let's say you want to make one from scratch. Sure you can, but you don't want to spend hours or maybe days reading the YA ARIA. So let's look at how that looks like. So you would have to go here and you would have to study this document, and this is the rules, what would make it accessible, right? And then you have to implement this yourself. And they give you a solution here, but you really have to grok for this and understand it, right? And this is the hidden complexity of HTML that most people don't really realize. They're like, okay, I learned HTML, CSS, moving on to JavaScript. Wrong. The web is so broken and inaccessible because we have this kind of approach to it, right? And I wish more people would pay attention to accessibility. So yeah, so let's close this and let's look at the boarding select menu. So in this post, I'm showing the select menu we have here. And if I go here, I'm just inside the SvelteKit project, so no problem. So we can go to the select and we can see I just have some shows here, nothing special, right? So selected, and in Svelte this is how we loop over this value. This is a select, right? And we just have some basic styles like inheriting the font size, font family, and some padding. But beyond this, it's really difficult to style the select element. We can give it some colors, background, but we really can't add curved borders around these options. We can't really space them out how we want, etc. compared to this, right? Like this is completely impossible. So this is what we're going to do by the end of this. So let me show you how simple it is to make a custom select menu using the listbox component in transition with Svelte transitions. So I can close this, and inside of here, let me go to listbox, and I'm going to delete everything just so we can start from scratch, right? Okay, this is amazing. So if you haven't already, you can install Svelte Headless UI by doing npm I development dependency, and you can install it like this from the post or from the documentation, right? So let's refer to the documentation for listbox, where you can also play around with examples. So if we go here to the documentation, we can see all of the elements here, and here is the custom select menu. Yeah, so we can see the basic example here. Let me just zoom in. And if we look at this example, we can see how it works. So we're going to import these components, right? Here is some data. Here it shows you how to loop over it, and then it goes in detail about styling, active and selected items, which you're going to do also. A custom label if you want, showing height in the list box. We're also going to add transitions using Svelte, which is going to be awesome. But yeah, you can read the documentation more if you want. So as I said, it's like playing with Lego, and this is what I mean by how it's composable, because these are like Lego blocks you can arrange anyhow you want and not being restricted by its opinions. So in this project, I'm using SvelteKit, as I said, and I created a listbox component, but it's not important. So to start, we're going to add the imports, the HTML markup with some classes we can use for styling. So let me just open this code example and we can start here. I'm also using TypeScript, but of course, as always, it's optional. So to make it easier, let me just copy the imports here, and you can also copy it from the documentation, right? And also this data, because this is not really important, alongside with the select. Cool, so we can save it, and now we can just use it, right? So here is the list box, and we can just say h4 list box. So now let's use our components, right? So we can say list box, going to create a div, and then let's use the first one. We're going to say list box, and then let's just make some space. So here's how we're going to store the value. We're going to say value selected, then we're going to say on change, which is a special event, take selected, and we can get the selected one from the event detail, which is a custom event, right? Yeah, and we're already starting to compose our custom select menu. So we can say list box button, which would already be imported, right? We can say class button. We can pass class along to components. And we can do this. And then let's add a span. We're going to say selected name, because that's in our data, right? So this is going to be the selected, and it's going to say name. Yeah, so we added the button, and then let's add the options. So we can say list box options. Make sure it's plural. Yeah, so we can say, let me see, why doesn't it want to autocomplete? Okay, here we go. Sometimes it's stubborn, right? Just pay attention, it's plural options, because it's an easy mistake you can make, right? And then we can loop over the data like normal. We can say each shows as anime, say anime ID, and then we can close the each loop. And let's see, inside of it, this is where you can use list box option, right? One option. And then we can just give it a span. We can say anime, oops, not animate effect. Not sure where you got that. Editor, are you drunk? Yeah, so we can go to list box options. We can say class option, value is going to be anime, what we're passing in, right? So this is here, value. And then we're also going to say is disabled if the anime we want to select is completed. Yeah, and then we can, oh, look at this. This was also, thank you, how very helpful you are, editor. And then we can save it, and let's see what we get if we here. And let's see what do we get if we go here. So it looks like nothing special, but there is a lot of work done in the background for us. For example, if you click on the list, we can see, so if we inspect the element, we can see on the left, here's a lot of work being done for us. So this is really a button, this is a list item, and you can see all the area things following the accessibility guidelines, right? And this would be a complete nightmare to do by yourself. Maybe not a nightmare, but tedious, right? So our job is to style this, and that's really it. And this is the part I love because I enjoy writing CSS, but if you don't, that's understandable, right? Yeah, so I guess I can leave this open for now, because you can see it works as expected. So we can go back to the post, and as I said, the listbox component takes a selected value and uses onChange to change the selected item using a custom event from event details, which you can move to a function instead, so you can kind of handle change or something, whatever you want, right? So the rest of the code should be self-explanatory because it's just a component you can arrange however you want. And I already mentioned how we can pass the class prop to them, which we can use to style it in a bit. And we went over the output, and another interesting thing is that I went here, I literally inspect the element, and I was like, yoink, my SVG now, and it's somewhere inside of here, right? Yeah, it's somewhere inside here. Here it is, the SVG. And I literally just copy that over so we can add this. And then we're also going to add the let directive that's going to let us know when the item is active or selected. So if we open the code here inside list box, we can just copy over the SVG. It's in our button. So right here, we can copy it over. If you scroll down here, here's where you can use the directive. So we can go to the list box option. Singular, right? After disable, you can say let active, let selected, and then we can style it by saying class active, apply if it's active, right? And apply the class selected. And we can save it, but nothing is going to happen because we haven't added styles. But this is just regular HTML at the end of the day, so let's just style it. Yeah, so let me open listbox Svelte, and I think I'm just going to copy it over because it's not a lot to type, but yeah, we'll just save on time, right? Let me know if you prefer me writing out the styles if you're unsure, but obviously I'm going to go over them, right? So let's take a brief look. So here we have a list box. And let me just remove this. So here is the list box. We just say max width 280 pixels. Position relative because we're going to position absolutely the options. So we can, let me show you here. If I go here, let me just close it because it's distracting. So already it's looking nice, right? So these are the options, and when you're using position absolute, and because we set the position relative on the parent, is going to anchor it to this. And let me find, yeah, here it is, position absolute, and then we say top, so it moves 44 pixels from the top. Let me just show you if I remove this. Yeah, you can see how it works. And then we just say right left, so it takes this entire width, because otherwise this will just happen, right? Then we give it some padding, some background color, really doesn't matter. And here are the arrows, which I gave the SVG width and height, and I say display block. And for the button, it's really important that we inherit the style, so we have to inherit the font family, font size, and also the color. So nothing special here. And this is the more fun part, so let's see. So here's the disable style, so we just target the aria disabled. If we go here, for example, if you remember, we set the default, not the default styles, but the disable styles by if the anime is completed, right? So we can see here is the, let me see, ID role, just scroll down here. If it's going to let me, but I guess not. So let's just anchor this to the bottom, and let me just move this so we can see more, and then we can see aria disabled true. Okay, so let me close that. And then we get the active styles, which we already used. And we have to use the global here because these styles or elements that is targeting is inside the component which we can't target with regular CSS. And this is the more fun part where we can create some pseudo elements we can create before, and that's how we can get this pointing emoji finger when we hover over some items. So yeah, so that's really awesome, but I also want you to pay attention to accessibility. So for example, let's look at this first select. So if we press tab on our keyboard, we can navigate to it, and then if we press enter, it's going to open the list, and we can navigate with arrow keys, right? Same as using just the keys to go over the values. And this is what Svelte Headless UI also takes care of us, so we can target it. We can use the arrows to get inside the menu, and if you go again here with tab selected, you can also press enter, and everything works fine. So this is currently selected Naruto. We can make sure One Piece is selected, and then let's go back to Cowboy Bebop. So yeah, that's basically almost it. We just need to add animations, I think. So to add animations, you can use the transition component from Svelte Headless UI if you're using Tailwind CSS, and if you go to the documentation, you can see it here. Let me see, yeah. So here is the transition. And yeah, this is using Tailwind. Here's a basic example. So use Tailwind classes, but I'm not using Tailwind. I want to use Svelte. So how do we do that? It's really simple. We just need to take control over if the listbox item is open or not by adding the let open directive. And then we can use Svelte transitions as normal. So we need to add the Svelte transition and the directive. So let's just go to the top. And here we can say import fade from Svelte transition, right? And then for the list box, just need to find list box, below on, you can say let open, and then let's find our list box options, plural, right? Don't forget. Yeah, so we can go here. We can say if open, because now we expose the open variable, right? So we can know if it's open or not. So don't forget to close it. We can say if, and then let's add a Svelte transition. So we can say div. Let's just close it. So we're going to add it here. Just see, yeah, that's right. And then we can just add a normal regular Svelte transition fade, which we imported. And let's add something so it's obvious it's working. Let's say 1 second. Press save, and we can go back here, and our transition should be working right now. And it does. And this is really awesome. Like, it's really subtle. Like, this would be really annoying for the user, but if you set it to something like 100 milliseconds, it like really makes all the difference in the user experience. And our component works just fine, and everything is beautiful. Alright, so that's it. So for the parting words, if you're working on a large project with more people, this might not work for you if you need more components, but I prefer this approach because it's so easy to use your own design system. So thanks for watching, and catch you later.